I never thought temptation could feel this heavy, until that night. It started with a look, a pause too long, and then the kind of silence that makes your heart pound. I bit my lip, not knowing if it was guilt, fear, or desire, and in that moment, I didn't push him away. What happened next shattered everything I thought I knew about loyalty, about love, and about myself. I used to believe that marriage was unshakable, that once you said your vows, temptation would never find its way into your heart. 4 years, I carried myself as a loyal wife, the kind of woman who turned her head whenever a man looked too long. But loyalty is easier when the world isn't testing you. The truth is, I never imagined my weakness would surface in the place I felt safest, inside my own home. It began subtly, the way these things often do. My husband worked late nights, always buried in projects and deadlines. And when he was home, he wasn't really home. His mind stayed chained to his phone, to his computer, to everything except me. I told myself I understood, that his career was for our future, but deep down, the loneliness gnawed at me. That's when he entered the picture. A family friend, younger, more present, the kind of man who noticed the small things. The way I changed my hair, the way I wore a new dress, even the tired look in my eyes after long days. He noticed everything my husband didn't. I told myself his kindness was harmless, but every smile from him lingered longer in my mind than it should have. One evening, when my husband was away on yet another business trip, this man stopped by. It wasn't planned, not exactly. He said he just wanted to check in, make sure I wasn't feeling too alone. I laughed it off, but the moment he stepped inside, I felt something shift in the air. It was heavier, thicker, as if the walls themselves knew I was about to cross a line I swore I never would. He sat on the couch like he belonged there, casual but confident. I remember setting down 2 glasses of wine, my hands trembling just enough for him to notice. He smiled, that disarming, easy smile that always seemed to lower my guard. We talked about ordinary things at first, work, friends, the weather, but there was an undercurrent, something unsaid pulling at us. Every time his eyes met mine, I felt it. A warmth, a danger, an invitation. When he leaned closer to hear me better, his arm brushed against mine. It was the lightest touch, but it sent a shiver racing down my spine. I could have moved away. I could have stood up, made an excuse, pretended it didn't affect me. But I didn't. I stayed frozen in that moment, my heart pounding in my chest like it was begging to escape. The conversation slowed, and the silence grew heavier between us. He looked at me, really looked, the way a man looks when he already knows what you're thinking. My lips parted, but no words came out. I bit down gently on my lower lip, trying to steady my breath, trying to hide how much I wanted him to close the space between us. And then, without asking, without hesitation, he did. His hand found mine, warm, firm, steady. My body betrayed me. I didn't pull away. My chest tightened with guilt, but the truth was undeniable. I didn't want to stop him. The weight of his hand on mine felt like fire, dangerous, consuming, and impossible to ignore. My breath hitched, and before I could steady myself, he leaned in closer. His scent wrapped around me, warm and familiar, yet forbidden. I should have stopped him right there. A voice in the back of my mind screamed that this was the line, that once I crossed it there would be no turning back. But instead of pulling away, I stayed still. My pulse was racing, my body betraying every vow I had ever spoken. His thumb traced the edge of my palm, slow and deliberate, sending ripples through me that I hadn't felt in years. When his lips brushed against my ear as he whispered something I barely registered, I bit my lips so hard it almost hurt. Not from fear, but from the overwhelming rush of want that surged through me. And then it happened. His lips found mine. Soft at first, testing, as if waiting for me to resist. But I didn't. I leaned into it, into him, tasting the wine on his breath, feeling the heat of his body press against mine. The kiss deepened, and with every second I sank further into the very thing I swore I would never allow. Somewhere in that moment, guilt tried to claw its way back. My husband's face flickered in my mind, his laugh, his promises. But the memory was fragile compared to the force of the man holding me now. And when his hand moved to my waist, pulling me closer, I let it happen. I let him happen. His hand slid slowly along my waist, pulling me into the kind of closeness I hadn't felt in so long. My body responded before my mind could form a single rational thought. Every inch of me was alive, every nerve awake, and all I could think was how much I had missed being touched, being wanted. The kiss grew hungrier, more desperate, as if he'd been holding back for too long. I felt my heart race in a way it never did anymore with my husband. This was reckless, dangerous, but it felt intoxicating. It was like falling off a ledge and realizing I didn't care if I hit the ground. When his lips trailed down my neck, a gasp escaped me before I could stop it. My fingers tightened against his shirt, pulling him closer instead of pushing him away. That was the moment I knew I wasn't going to stop this. I couldn't. The room seemed to shrink around us, the silence breaking only with the sound of our breathing, fast and heavy. A war raged inside me, the woman who had once believed in forever versus the woman giving in to the fire burning through her veins. And yet, I chose the fire. I bit my lip again, this time not to hold back words but to keep from moaning as his hand slid lower as his grip tightened. My chest rose and fell with every breath, torn between shame and the undeniable pull of desire. And still, I didn't push him away. His touch grew bolder, and every second felt like a test I was failing willingly. My breaths came in short, shaky bursts, each one louder than the voice of reason in my head. He pressed me back against the couch, his eyes locked on mine as if asking one last silent question. But I didn't shake my head. I didn't move away. Instead, I let the moment swallow me whole. My lips parted, my body arching into his, giving him every answer he needed without a single word spoken. I felt the strength of him, the undeniable difference between what I had at home and what was in front of me now. My lip trembled as I bit down, overwhelmed by his size, his presence, the way he held me like I was something fragile and precious, and at the same time, something he desperately needed to consume. For a fleeting second, I thought of my husband again, of the vows, of the nights spent waiting for him to notice me, to hold me. But the guilt slipped through my fingers as quickly as it came, drowned out by the heat of his body and the hunger in his touch. The room spun with the weight of what I was doing. My hands roamed without thought, clutching him tighter, begging for more without a single word spoken. The line I swore I'd never cross was far behind me now, and every step forward was a surrender I couldn't take back. And still, I didn't push him away. His breath was hot against my skin as his lips traced down my neck, each kiss pulling me deeper into a place I knew I shouldn't be. My chest rose and fell in uneven rhythm, and I could feel the rush of blood in my ears, louder than any thought of resistance. When his hand slid lower, exploring with a certainty that told me he already knew I wouldn't stop him, my body trembled, not from fear, but from the sheer intensity of it all. I bit down hard on my lip, trying to stifle the sounds rising in my throat, but a quiet gasp escaped anyway, betraying me. For a moment, he pulled back, his eyes searching mine, almost as if giving me one last chance to change my mind. His gaze was serious, questioning, but I didn't look away. My silence was an answer, and he read it perfectly. The corner of his mouth curved into something between relief and desire before he leaned back into me. The weight of him pressed me down, and for the first time in years, I felt small in someone's arms, not invisible, not overlooked, but seen, wanted, consumed. It was dangerous. It was wrong. But it was also everything I had been aching for. The guilt was still there, clawing faintly at the back of my mind, but it was no match for the fire that burned in me now. I knew I should have stopped it before it went too far. I knew I should have pushed him away, stood up, told him to leave. But I didn't. I let it happen. I let him happen. And as his hands tightened around me, I realized the truth. There was no turning back. The world outside those four walls disappeared. Time felt suspended, as though nothing else existed but the two of us tangled in a moment that should never have happened. His grip tightened, his breath grew heavier, and every movement sent waves crashing through me I hadn't felt in so long. I bit my lip again, harder this time, as if punishing myself even while giving in to him completely. The sharp sting only heightened everything else. The warmth of his body, the strength in his arms, the way he held me like I was his and only his. I knew it was wrong. I knew this wasn't love, not the kind I had promised to my husband. But it was something real and consuming, something I hadn't tasted in years. It felt like drowning and breathing at the same time. When he whispered my name against my skin, the sound sent shivers through me. My fingers dug into his back, holding him closer, urging him not to stop. I wasn't thinking about tomorrow, about consequences, about the wreckage this would leave behind. In that moment, all I wanted was him, his strength, his touch, his need for me. And then, in one final surge, everything came crashing down. My body tensed, my breath caught, and I gave in completely, no longer caring about the woman I was supposed to be. He held me through it, his lips pressed against mine, and for a fleeting instant, it felt like we belonged in that forbidden embrace. But as the silence returned, broken only by our uneven breaths, the weight of what I had done began to sink in. The fire was still burning, but so was the shadow of guilt waiting just beyond the flame. The room was still heavy with the heat of what had just happened. My skin was flushed, my lips swollen, my body trembling from more than just exhaustion. He was still there beside me, his hand resting gently against my hip as if claiming me, as if silently saying it was right. But the silence between us told me otherwise. That's when the guilt came rushing in, sharp, suffocating, unavoidable. It was like waking up from a dream and realizing you'd walked straight into a nightmare of your own making. My chest tightened, not from passion this time, but from shame. The image of my husband's face filled my mind, his trust, his tired smile, his blind faith in me. And I had shattered it all without him even knowing. I pulled the blanket tighter around myself, suddenly desperate to cover what had been so freely given just moments before. He looked at me, his expression softer now, almost protective. "You don't regret this, do you?" he whispered. My throat tightened. I couldn't bring myself to answer, because the truth was complicated. I regretted betraying my marriage, my vows. But I couldn't deny the way my body had craved him, the way I had needed that moment. Both truths collided inside me, tearing me apart. I forced a smile, weak and unconvincing. I don't know. He brushed his fingers along my arm, as if trying to comfort me, but it only made the guilt sharper. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't the last time. I had already opened the door, and once opened, doors like this are never easy to close. That night changed everything. On the surface, nothing looked different. My husband came home days later, kissed me on the cheek, asked about the week as if our lives were untouched. But inside me, everything had shifted. I carried a secret that burned hotter than any flame, a memory I couldn't erase no matter how hard I tried. Every time my husband spoke to me with trust in his voice, the guilt clawed deeper. Every smile from him was like a knife twisting in my chest. I would lie awake at night beside him, staring at the ceiling, replaying every second of what I had done. The way I didn't push him away, the way I wanted it, the way I chose silence over loyalty. I told myself it was a mistake, that it would never happen again. But the truth was far more dangerous, because deep down, part of me wanted it to happen again. Part of me craved the way he touched me, the way he looked at me like I was more than invisible, more than forgotten. That craving terrified me, because it meant my betrayal wasn't just a moment of weakness, it was a hunger I had fed. I don't know if I'll ever confess to my husband. I don't know if I'll ever find the courage to tell him that the woman he believes in has already been broken. But I do know this. Sometimes the most dangerous betrayals aren't the ones planned or forced. They're the ones you let happen, the ones you didn't push away. And that is my truth, my sin, my story.